Much of the information that I'm going to be talking about social development for our preschool kids, comes from Laura Burke's 2018 Exploring Lifespan Development book. Kids begin to develop their concept of themselves during the preschool years. They may talk about who they are and what they like, what they're good at, what's important to them, and their attitudes about different things as well. Like, I don't like eating zucchini. Parents who respect and honor kids for who they are and who talk with their kids about what's happening in their lives and their feelings and thoughts about those things help kids to develop a positive self-concept. When preschool kids have parents who tend to criticize them, either their ability or who they tend to give up easily when faced with challenges, and they're more likely to be ashamed and sad when they fail at something. Parents who have more realistic expectations for what kids can do, who help kids do things that are difficult, and who point out how hard kids are trying and their improvement, help kids be more positive about their abilities. By the time kids are 4 to 5 years old, they understand reasons for basic emotions, like she's sad because her mom went to the store without her. They usually associate those emotions with outside influences, like something made her happy, something made him sad. And they make their judgments about what a person's experiencing based on that person's behavior. They're beginning to understand that thinking positive thoughts can help change a person's mood when they're sad or mad, and that thinking negative thoughts takes a person into a negative frame of mind. The more their parents label and talk about emotions, and the more warmth parents use when they talk with their kids, the better their kids are at understanding emotion. And they use more words about emotions as well. Research indicates that moms who explained, negotiated, and compromised with their kids more when they were 2.5 years old had kids who were better at age 3 in understanding emotions, and they were more likely to use similar strategies as their moms. Preschoolers who talked more about feelings were also rated as better liked by their friends. As kids learn to use more strategies in interacting with their peers, they have fewer emotional outbursts. Some strategies that they might use could be to cover their eyes or ears if they don't want to see or hear something, to talk out loud to themselves, to calm themselves. They might change their mind if they're not allowed to do something and just go on to do something else, or fix a situation to make it better. Like if a friend is upset, they might share a toy with them. These skills are possible due to changes in the prefrontal cortex, right, this part right up here in the brain, and that's that executive function area of the brain. And this helps them to think more flexibly and to inhibit responses. We talked about before, when kids have parents who don't express positive emotions often, who act as if kids' feelings aren't important, and who aren't good at controlling their own emotions, especially anger, kids' emotion regulation is typically impacted, and they might have a hard time controlling their own emotions, and this can lead to difficulties in interactions with others. Preschool age kids are extra sensitive to praise and shame or blame. They start to experience more self-conscious emotions during the preschool years, and these emotions are related to how kids begin to picture themselves. So these are the early roots of self-esteem. When parents evaluate their performance, either good or bad, kids can have intense feelings of pride or shame, and neither of those things is necessarily good. What's better for kids is for parents to focus on kids' effort. You worked hard on that and it still didn't work. What if we try to do it this way instead? Kids tend to persist more when their parents focus on their effort or the process of doing something instead of the result. And something simple parents can do is just say, hey, thanks for doing that. They don't need to say you're such a good boy or a good girl. Preschool kids are developing more obvious empathy skills, that ability to feel what another person might be experiencing and to respond with kindness or helping that person. Preschoolers with good social skills tend to help others who are in distress, and kids who struggle with social skills and their own emotion regulation might become overwhelmed with their own emotions and react negatively when another child becomes upset. Kids with parents who respond to their strong feelings with empathy and sympathy are more likely to also respond with those skills of empathy and sympathy. Kids don't automatically know to do these things. They learn through their interactions with those people who are closest to them. There are several aspects of play that kids engage in, and we see each of these continue throughout their preschool years. One is that non-social activity when kids are playing by themselves or just watching other kids play. We see that a lot in the toddler years, but we see that it continues throughout the preschool years as well. Another type of play that kids engage in is parallel play, where two kids might play near each other and maybe with similar materials, but they don't interact with each other. A third is associative play, where they're not playing together, but they might exchange toys or comment on something that the other child is doing. And the last is cooperative play, where kids are actively playing together and they're trying to achieve some common goal in their play. Sometimes kids will go back to non-social activity or parallel play after playing with another child or with a group of kids. Maybe that's to take a break from those intense efforts that are needed to interact with other kids. It takes a lot of emotional energy. Some kids play by themselves and don't play with others much. If a child wanders around and doesn't interact at all, and maybe just spends time in repetitive play, like rolling a car back and forth, there might be a concern. Kids who are really shy may not interact with other kids, and kids who just spend time in repetitive play, like banging cars together, might be impulsive and not able to regulate their negative emotions well. Both the super shy and the impulsive child are more likely to be rejected by their peers. So it's important for parents and other adults to support the child in developing skills to interact with other kids. That might be actually engaging in play with other kids and your child and supporting them in developing skills and interacting with other kids. There are other kids who like to play alone, but who do fine when they do play with their friends. Those kids seem to be fine and are typically easily accepted to play with others. Some boys who like to play alone might be rejected by their friends because they aren't playing like a boy, quote unquote, should play, according to other boys. Preschool girls tend to spend more time in make-believe play, and boys in more rough and tumble play. Both of those have been related to emotional understanding and self-regulation a year later. 3 to 5-year-old kids are in the midst of developing their first friendships, and they often have very positive interactions with those kids that they call their friends when compared to other kids. Kids with a mutual friendship tend to be better adjusted and to have more social competence as well. Kids who have positive relationships with their parents, what we call secure attachment, generally find it easier to make new friends and to be accepted by others. We'll talk more about that in a second. Kids who are accepted by others, and particularly by kids in their class, are more likely to participate collaboratively in class activities. to stay on task even when it's hard, and to do well academically in those first years of school. So there's a lot that we can do as parents to support kids as they get ready for school, just by the way we interact with them and having positive, strengths-based, supportive interactions with our kids. Kids with more informal play opportunities with other kids also tend to be more socially skilled. Parents' suggestions for beginning to interact with another child, how to manage conflicts, and tolerance for making fun of others predicts kids' social competence and acceptance by other kids. So if parents are okay with kids making fun of other kids, those kids may not be accepted as easily if they continue to do that more. Kids who have been sensitively responded to in the early years often have more secure attachment relationships, and kids with more secure attachment relationships have better friendships, more harmonious friendships, more friends, more supportive friendships throughout their preschool and school years. So what we can do as parents is to, when our kids or babies respond to their needs, when they're toddlers, respond to what they're feeling and validate those feelings. Same with our preschool kids. Respond to what kids are experiencing, validate their feelings, normalize those, and maybe then brainstorm together what kids can do to solve their problems. Young kids begin to develop their morality in their early years. We see some of that in their sense of fairness, their empathy for others, and then also their sense of right and wrong. He got more, that wasn't nice. At first, their morality might be due to their parents forcing them to do what's right, but over time, they take on more and more of the responsibility for their conscience internally. They don't do it because somebody expects them to, but because they think it's the right thing to do. Parents who use warmth and reasoning help children to develop these skills. Aggression increases during the toddler years, and we see it on full display in the preschool years. There are two overall types: instrumental aggression, which is when kids are being aggressive so they can get their way, and hostile aggression, which is being mean to another person, often so a person can get something they want. We see an instrumental aggression more in the toddler and early preschool period, taking a toy that another child is playing with. And as kids are able to delay their own gratification more, it decreases. It also decreases as kids begin learning to take turns, which is another big event in the preschool years with delaying gratification. A lot of that comes as a result of the advances in the prefrontal cortex of the brain. The more connectivity that's happening through their interactions. At this time, we see more and more hostile aggression through the preschool period and into the early school years. We see physical aggression where kids hit, kick, push, knock down, and even destroy something. This type of aggression is usually most common in the early preschool years, and it gradually decreases as kids use more verbal and relational aggression with other kids. Verbal aggression might include threatening others, name-calling, and other things like that. And relational aggression includes excluding kids, ignoring them, saying mean things about them, or making threats to not be somebody's friend if they don't do what you tell them to do. We see that boys tend to be more aggressive than girls throughout childhood, and girls tend to use relational aggression, and boys are more likely to use physical, verbal, or relational aggression. Girls might use indirect relational aggression to hurt or destroy friendships or peer relationships. And kids who have a lot of negative emotionality are impulsive and don't listen to their parents or caregivers are more likely to be aggressive with others and to have more difficulties in the school age years, as well as in adolescence, with both internalizing and externalizing behaviors, having social skills issues, and antisocial activity. Several things are linked to kids' aggression, including parents who continue to assert their power over kids, like parents who are a little bit more controlling and are basically saying, you listen to me because I'm the boss. Parents who criticize their kids a lot, who use physical punishment, and who are inconsistent and following through with their kids. Boys are typically more likely to have harsh and inconsistent discipline because they're more active. They might not listen to their parents. They might be more impulsive just because their own brain development is a little bit slower than girls. Kids who experience this a lot will often respond by lashing out at others when they're disappointed, frustration, or they have some sort of power over another child. These kids are also more likely to think that others have a negative intent when they don't. And as a result, they may attack others for what seems like no reason. This is just something interesting to know. Cartoons are the most violent form of media programming that there is. And over 1,000 studies have indicated that TV violence, as well as violent video games, increase the probability that one will have hostile thoughts or emotions, as well as aggressive behavior, even after we control for parent and child aggression, parent education, neighborhood crime, and IQ, with stronger impacts for kids who are more aggressive. Kids in an intervention who watched appropriate educational programming and pro-social shows had higher levels of social competence and less aggressive behavior. So how do we help kids be less aggressive? We have to support the positive relationship between parents and their kids. We want to decrease hostile and controlling interactions, and we want to support positive and effective ways of interacting. So that means that we as parents, we have to support their ability to interact with other kids by telling kids what we want them to do and support them in doing it. Show them how to do it. If we're telling kids not to hit other kids, but we end up hitting our kids a lot, we're not teaching them at all. If we tell our kids that we want them to be nice to other kids and we're not nice to our kids, we're not helping them at all. We can also help kids talk about their feelings by labeling their feelings based on the emotions that we see in our kids. And we also want to support the development of children's problem-solving skills. Something else that happens with our kids is around age 2, kids establish gender categories like boy, girl, lady, or man. And by the time they're preschoolers, they often associate toys, clothing, tools, games, jobs, behaviors, and colors with boys or girls. Many preschoolers have strong beliefs about what's okay for boys and girls to do, and they tend to prefer to spend time with kids of their same biological sex. We see this come to life in their play, as boys tend to be more impulsive, physically aggressive, and active, and girls tend to be more submissive, fearful, emotionally sensitive, compliant, good at making an effort to control their behavior, and good at relational aggression as well. They use that a lot. Parents often support these tendencies in their kids, and although they tend to be more okay with girls crossing the line and playing with boy toys than they are when boys cross the line and play with girl toys. Parents who are okay with their kids playing a variety of boy versus girl types toys have kids who are more likely to play with toys associated with both sexes.